The second presenter is Mr. Lurong CHEN. I'd like to continue the introduction of him. He's a senior economist of area, and he obtained a PhD from International Economics of the Graduate Institute of International and Development in Geneva, in Europe, Switzerland. And his main research are globalization and FTAs, free trade agreements, and the GVCs and economic digitalization and trade and development. So basically everything about international economics. Lurong-san, would you please start your presentation?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ota. Thank you, Professor Watanabe. Thank you, everyone, for joining this seminar. It's my great pleasure to join this seminar with Dr. Inomata and have this opportunity to communicate and exchange ideas with all of you. So before I start, I might ask our colleague from VAT to help me share the screen so you can see my PowerPoint presentation. Thank you very much. So regarding today's topic, I would like to say is that digitalization and global value chain, so-called GVCs, are both the outcome of technological progress. They are indeed two phases of economic globalization in the 21st century. For Asia, digitalization and GVC participation could and would bring about regional prosperity in a new century. Next slide, please. So my presentation today is composed of three parts. Part one will talk about digital as a new gene of GVCs, and part two will discuss about the need for international collaboration and GVCs in developing digital economy. And in the part three, I would like to share some thoughts on the policy for developing digital economy and also promote GVC participation from the perspective of Asian development. Next slide, please. So first, digital as a new gene of GVCs. To see this, I will put technological progress and the evolution of economic globalization into the same box, and so how this get birth to international trade and GVCs and nurture its development. Dr. Inomata already touched upon this issue in his presentation. What I'm going to do here is that to dig a little bit deeper, to look into a bit into the history and provide more complement details of this process. Looking back always help us better understand what's going to happen in the future. The whole process has covered hundreds of years of history, but there's a trick that will allow us to cut a long story short, that is by observing the changes in trade costs. And as we know, one way that technological progress affects international economy is via its effect on the reduction of trade costs. To simplify, I will classify trade costs in three categories: the cost of transportation, the cost of communication, and the cost of people-to-people connection. Next slide, please. So here, we can see the figure here is based on Richard Baldwin's 2016 book, The Great Convergence, Information Technology and the New Globalization. Here, the development of economic globalization is divided into 4 stages, from the pre-globalized world to the third unboundary. In short, the first unboundary refers to the separation between production and consumption. The second unboundary refers to the fragmentation of production, and the third unboundary refers to the further fragmentation within the task of production. Throughout this process, we can see technological progress works on cost reduction and push forward economic specialization to more and more details. And along with deeper unbundling of globalization is the technology's continuous effort on final international division of labor. So let's look at this one by one. At the very beginning, in the world of pre-globalization, the cost of transportation, communication, and people-to-people connection were all very high. Production activities and the consumption need to be geographically close to each other. It is too costly to do business remotely. Then we move to the second stage, the first unbundling. With the application of new technology, especially the steamship, the railway, that effectively reduce the time and cost needed for long-distance transportation. Production and consumption weren't able to be separated from each other. In this way, technological progress managed to promote industry-wide division of labor and make it feasible to realize massive production and economy of scale. Internationally, production and consumption can be located in different countries and be linked via international trade. Countries start to trade with each other, but at this stage, international trade was dominated by trade in goods, and the main content of trade is final products and raw materials. Then, in the 20th centuries, we have this so-called information revolution, which further drove down the trade costs, via its continuous effect on transportation costs, but more important, on its effect on reducing communication costs. As a result, new ways of organizing international economic activities emerged, as it is not necessary for production to be an integral process, and markets thought it beneficial to fragment and share the production internationally. This so-called second unbundling lowered the threshold to join international division of labor and allow more firms, especially those medium and small-sized enterprises, to join global production sharing. For developing countries, GVC participation provides new source on development. The idea of trade and investment liberalization got widely accepted because countries see it as a way to facilitate their involvement in GVC, which will allow them to pursue economic growth and prosperity. And at the same time, to meet the needs for growing GVCs, service links, which play a role in coordinating GVCs, especially those in business and financial sector, were making great strides forward as well. As a result, we can see the world economy go further interconnected via GVCs. There are more to trade, and countries trade more frequently. And this is evident in the growth of global maritime trade, of which the transport volume trade has increased by nearly 2 times in the past 3 decades, from 4 million tons loaded in 1990 to over 11 billion tons loaded in 2019. Then we open a new chapter of economic globalization in the 21st century, the so-called the third unbundling. The application of digital technologies effectively reduce the cost of people-to-people connection, in addition to its effect on transportation costs and communication costs. People that are far away from each other find it more easier than ever before to share their ideas and source and collaborate via the internet. This extends and deepens global value chains. On the one side, digitalization squares out boundaries between different links of the value chains and increase the information transparency of the GVC to all participants. In addition to international fragmentation of products, firms can benefit even more from lower cost of people-to-people connection and further fragment tasks and outsource them internationally. And on the other side, the application of digital technology into the service sector make the services much more innovative and productive than we ever thought of it. Digital empowered services links, either they are digital enabled or digital born, can improve the capacity of GVC coordination and motivate this network to extend. That drives GVC evolving towards an ecosystem that is better connected, smarter, and more efficient. So in this way, we can see that we can say that digitalization and servicification are actually the two key features of the 21st century GVC. Next slide, please. Next, let's see why the development of digital economy needs support from international collaboration and GVCs. Digitalization could be a new engine of economic growth. Embracing digital technology into the business can create new products, new services, new business model, and new markets. In particular, it will unlock a huge market potential for development once this digital technology got combined with those in new materials and new energy. Take Industry 4.0, for instance. A study by Kearney Analysis estimates that in case of ASEAN, adopting Industry 4.0 can increase the region's overall productivity by more than $200 billion and increase its revenue by over $40 billion for ASEAN. So next slide, please. In this slide, I just list down some cutting-edge technologies that have been seen the most promising market prosperity, such as 3D printing, industrial internet, blockchains, and so on. Here, even without technical background, one can easily imagine how complex these technologies are and how powerful they could foster economic growth once they were industrialized. Moreover, this digital technology could be interlinked and compatible with each other. That means they can be combined together and give birth to new technology or new products that are even more advanced and more complex. For instance, we know that some semiconductor products, even they are small, but they will have more complex structure and have more components than a Boeing aircraft has. For that reason, we think international collaboration via its extensive and deepening GVCs will be a good solution, although it does not to be the only solution to meet the needs of increasing technology complex of digital economy. This is true, especially when we think about how many IPs and patents lying behind those technologies. Next slide, please. Here, let's see this, I call it AI apple tree as an example. We all know that AI is a very promising area of using digital technology. AI is not a single technology, but a set of technology that enable machines to perform human-like functions. Some core technology of AI will include first, machine learning. This is technology that teach machine how to learn. Second, technology for rule-based reasoning. These are the ones that guide machines how to think, including decision-making, expert system, knowledge presentation, planning and scheduling, searching and optimization, and on and on. Third, reception technologies that allow machines to communicate. And fourth, embodiment technologies, such as autonomous robotics and human augmentation to help machine work like the human. In the picture, you can see that this composes the trunk of this AI apple tree. And we can also see that in this tree, there are many apples. They just represent the big variety of AI applications in our economy and society. Some low-hanging ones include robotic process automation, speech and video recognition, recommendation system, and so on. But here, I'm not going to go more details about this AI apple trees and the ecosystem it will need it. What I want to show is that to give you some first impression about the high complexity of digital technology and their extensive market potential. And once again, it would be a good idea that we pour all our effort together to nurture this tree, make it grow fast and healthy, so that we can all enjoy the sweet apples. Next slide, please. So finally, regarding digital transformation, GVC participation, and Asian development, I would like to share some of my very preliminary thought on policy. Next slide, please. First, digital economy is also known as innovative economy or creative economy. Supporting innovative economic growth will need innovative policy source. As the finger here shows, the coexistence of different patterns of unbundling has actually provided policymakers more flexibility and enlarged the policy space. In different sectors, depends on the condition. One can think about either sequential upgrade of the economy or the leapfrogging strategy. And moreover, there are also options for feedback policy. That is, by embracing new technology in the old sectors, we can actually polish their competitive edge again. Next slide, please. Second argument is that improving people-to-people connection should be a principle in policy design. As they have been illustrated in the early part of my speech, digitalization in improving people-to-people connection is indeed let the third unbundling distinguish itself from the first and the second unbundling. From a market perspective, it's very likely that those products and services that follow this technology trend and facilitate people-to-people connection is going to receive high market reward. Taking the growth of Zoom, for example, we know Zoom is an online video and audio meeting based on cloud platform. It provides an online solution for people to work together and study together remotely. This is particularly useful when we're during the COVID pandemic. And as we can see, the number of business users of Zoom rocketed from 80,000 at the end of 2019 to 470 in the fourth quarter of 2020. Within 12 months, the company's total revenue increased by $700 million, with net income increased by over 16 times. And at the macro level, we also like to say that digital transformation is not just about changes in economy, but more important, changes in the way how people live, how people work, and how people study. It is more than an economic transformation, but a social transformation. For East Asia, improving people-to-people connection is a necessary condition to realize the bigger ambition of regional development, such as eliminating developing gaps or promoting inclusive growth. Next slide, please. The last one is that digital connectivity stays at the core of digital transformation and GVCs in Asia. Digital connectivity means not only better and safer connection in the physical world, but also led in the cyberspace. It needs efforts to eliminate regulatory barriers as well as effort to promote cooperation in improving cybersecurity. But above all, improving data connectivity should be a policy priority. Data-related infrastructure is the precondition for free flow of information, capital, goods, and services. In Asia, we can see two big obstacles still exist. One is the existence of developing gaps. The other is the lack of capital, human skills, and technology know-how in many developing countries. But a greater challenge here is to reach an international consensus to realize free flow of data with trust. This has very deep implications for GVCs. On the one hand, we see here is that technological barrier to data flow has been effectively reduced thanks to the widespread use of smartphone, the internet, and all those technology that facilitate data collection, processing, storage, and distribution. But on the other hand, trust highlights the increased concerns about data accuracy, data safety, and data privacy. While the advance of information and communication technology facilitate the use of data, it also increases the risk that this data could be illegally leaked, stolen, or misused. Therefore, free flow data will need safeguard by a series of backup policy and also the international rules. This issue becomes more important as the data has been a main carrier of the value. So how to build up the trust? Here we suggest to promote cross-border e-commerce and digital trade. We know that it will take time for countries to establish trust. For Asia, we are known for this so-called market-driven way of solving problems and regional integration. So why not we start with collaboration in promoting the low-hanging fruit of digital economy, such as e-commerce and digital trade, and then later move forward to deeper cooperation and digital transformation. So, but of course, this will also call for international rules and setting on issues such as IPR protection, consumer protection, and competition, and et cetera, et cetera. But with this, I would like to end my presentation here, and later we can have some Q&A and discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lurong-san. Thank you for your insightful presentation. Particularly, you mentioned the significance of the impact of AI technology to the new global value chain. And I understand to optimize the GVC, you have to realign the all pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. And we can't complete the jigsaw puzzle by yourself, and we need a cooperation among the nations so that it might provide more space for policymakers. And particularly, I enjoyed your illustration of apples. And Mr. Inomata showed the snake, and you showed the apple. So I'm not sure which is going to win.